The transport ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Dr. Elena Martinez pressed her face against the small window and gasped. Before her stretched the massive bulk of Nexus Station, a metal city floating in the darkness of space. The station was bigger than anything she had ever seen. It spun slowly around the orange gas giant Kepler 442b, its lights twinkling like stars. Elena had traveled for 3 weeks to reach this place. She was tired, excited, and nervous all at once. Her hands shook as she gathered her research bags. This was the biggest assignment of her career. The Galactic Coalition had personally requested her to come here. They needed someone who could study ancient alien technology, and Elena was one of the best at her job. The docking bay doors opened with a loud hiss. Elena stepped onto the station and immediately felt the artificial gravity pull at her feet. The air smelled clean but strange, like ozone mixed with something she could not name. Aliens walked past her in the wide corridors. She saw tall, thin beings with blue skin, creatures that looked like walking crystals, and others covered in scales that reminded her of Earth's ancient reptiles. A voice called her name. "Dr. Martinez?" She turned to see a man in a coalition uniform walking toward her. He was tall with brown hair and kind eyes. "I'm Lieutenant Jake Sullivan. I've been assigned to work with you on this project." Elena shook his hand. "Nice to meet you, Lieutenant. I have to admit, I'm still not sure exactly what this project is about." The briefing was pretty vague. Jake smiled. "You'll understand once you see it. Trust me. It's something special. Director Vex Prime is waiting to meet you. We should head to the briefing room." They walked through the station's main corridor. Elena marveled at how different species worked together here. She saw humans talking with beings that had 4 arms, and creatures made of living crystal discussing something with reptilian aliens. This was what the Coalition was all about. Different species working together for the good of the galaxy. The briefing room was large and circular. At its center stood a being unlike any Elena had seen before. It had 4 arms, purple skin, and large black eyes. Its body was covered in what looked like natural armor plating. "Dr. Martinez," the creature said in perfect English, though its voice had a strange musical quality. "I am Director Vex Prime. Welcome to Nexus Station. I hope your journey was comfortable." Elena nodded. "Thank you for having me here, Director. I'm very curious about this project." Vex Prime activated a holographic display in the center of the plaza room. The image showed a starship, but it was unlike any vessel Elena had ever seen. It was sleek and organic looking, as if it had been grown rather than built. Its hull was dark, but seemed to shimmer with hidden patterns. "This is why you are here," Vex Prime said. "We found this ship drifting in the Andromeda Spiral 3 months ago. It appears to be very old, possibly millions of years old. We have brought it here to study it." Elena leaned forward. "What species built it?" "That is what we hope you can tell us," Vex Prime replied. "The ship does not match any known civilization in our databases. The materials it is made from are completely unknown to us. But here is the strange part. We cannot get it to work." Jake stepped forward. "We've had the best engineers and pilots from 12 different species try to activate it. Nothing happens. The ship just sits there like a dead rock." Elena studied the hologram. The ship was beautiful in a way that made her chest feel tight. There was something about its curves and angles that seemed familiar, though she was sure she had never seen anything like it before. "What exactly do you want me to do?" she asked. Vex Prime's large eyes focused on her. "You are an expert in ancient civilizations and lost technologies. We need someone who can think differently about this problem. All of our technical approaches have failed. Perhaps an archaeological approach will work better." Elena felt a thrill of excitement. This was exactly the kind of challenge she loved. "When can I see the ship?" "Right now, if you wish," Vex Prime said. It is in Hangar Bay 7. They took a transport tube to the hangar bay. Alina's heart raced as they traveled through the station. This was what she had dreamed of as a child, exploring the mysteries of the galaxy, discovering secrets that had been lost for ages. The hangar bay doors opened, and Alina's breath caught in her throat. The ship sat in the center of the massive space, held in place by energy fields. It was even more beautiful in person than in the hologram. The hull seemed to pulse with a very faint light, so dim she wondered if she was imagining it. Incredible, she whispered. Jake walked beside her as they approached the ship. We've been studying it for months, but it's like trying to understand a puzzle with half the pieces missing. The hull appears to be made of a single piece of material. We can't find any seams or joints. Elena walked slowly around the ship. As she moved, she noticed something strange. The patterns on the hull seemed to shift slightly, as if they were responding to her presence. She stopped and stared at one section of the hull. "Jake, look at this," she said. He moved to stand beside her. "What is it?" "The patterns on the hull. They're different now than they were a moment ago." Jake frowned. "That's impossible. We've been monitoring this ship constantly. It shows no signs of activity." Elena reached out her hand toward the hull, but stopped just short of touching it. The pattern seemed to grow brighter, just slightly. "I think it's reacting to me." Other members of the research team gathered around them. Zara-9, a crystalline being whose body rang like a bell when she moved, approached them. "Dr. Martinez, we have detected no energy signatures from the vessel. It remains completely inactive." Elena kept her eyes on the hull patterns. "Maybe it's not completely inactive. Maybe it's just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Jake asked. Elena had no answer, but she felt something deep in her chest, a pull like the ship was calling to her. She had felt something similar when she discovered ancient ruins on distant planets, but this was stronger. Much stronger. Commander Kelks, a tall reptilian being with scales that changed color when he was excited, joined their group. "Dr. Martinez, would you like to see the ship's interior? We have managed to map most of it." Elena nodded, though she could not take her eyes off the hull patterns. They were definitely changing, becoming more complex and more beautiful. She wondered if anyone else could see it, or if it was just her imagination. As they prepared to enter the ship, Elena felt a strange sensation. It was as if the ship was aware of her presence and was pleased that she was here. She shook her head, telling herself not to be silly. Ships were machines, not living things. But as she followed the others toward the ship's entrance, she could not shake the feeling that something very important was about to happen. The ship seemed to be waiting for her, and Elena was finally ready to find out why. The next morning, Elena woke up early. She had spent the night dreaming about the ship, seeing its patterns moving like living things. She dressed quickly and headed to the hangar bay. She wanted to see the ship again before the others arrived. Hangar was quiet and dimly lit. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor. Elena walked slowly toward the ship, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. As she got closer, she noticed something that made her heart race. The ship's hull patterns were glowing brighter than yesterday. She stood in front of the ship and studied its surface. The patterns looked like a mix of mathematical equations and organic shapes, like tree branches or river systems. They reminded her of the neural network she had studied in biology class years ago. "You're up early, Jake's voice came from behind her. Elena turned to see him walking toward her with 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one and stood beside her, looking at the ship. "I couldn't sleep," Elena said. "I kept thinking about this ship. There's something about it that feels familiar, but I can't figure out what." Jake sipped his coffee. "The engineering team ran more scans yesterday after you left. They found something interesting. The ship's hull isn't just one material. It's made of thousands of different substances that are somehow fused together at the molecular level. It should be impossible. Elena moved closer to the ship. The patterns on the hull began to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. "Jake, are you seeing this?" He looked where she was pointing. "Seeing what?" "The patterns, they're moving." Jake frowned and pulled out a small scanner. He pointed it at the ship and checked the readings. "I'm not detecting any energy signatures. The ship is completely inactive." Elena reached out and almost touched the hull. The patterns became brighter and more complex. "It's definitely reacting to something." At that moment, Director Vex Prime entered the hangar with several other researchers. Zaranane's crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. Commander Kelx's scales shifted to a curious blue color as he approached. "Dr. Martinez," Vex Prime said, "we are ready to enter the ship. Are you prepared?" Elena nodded. She had been thinking about this moment all night. "Yes, I'm ready." Vex Prime activated a control device. A section of the ship's hull began to shimmer and fade. Elena gasped as an opening appeared where solid metal had been just moments before. "How is that possible?" she asked. Zara-9 stepped forward, her voice ringing like wind chimes. "The ship's hull can change its molecular structure. We discovered this ability 3 days ago. The opening only appears when we use a specific frequency." Elena walked toward the entrance. As she got closer, the opening became wider and brighter. When Jake tried to follow her, the entrance began to close slightly. "Interesting," Commander Kelx said. "The ship seems to prefer Dr. Martinez." Elena stepped through the entrance and into the ship. The moment her feet touched the floor inside, everything changed. The walls began to glow with a soft, warm light. The corridor ahead of her lit up like a pathway of stars. Jake followed her inside, and the others came after him. But Elena noticed that the ship's responses were strongest when she was moving. The lights followed her steps, and she could hear a very faint humming sound, like music played too quietly to understand. "This is incredible," Dr. Marcus Webb said as he entered the ship. He was the station's chief engineer, a thin man with gray hair and excited eyes. "The ship is responding to your presence, Dr. Martinez." They walked through the ship's corridors. Elena had expected to see the usual things: control panels, computer screens, mechanical systems. Instead, the walls looked organic, like they were made of living tissue rather than metal. The surfaces were smooth and curved, with no sharp edges anywhere. "It doesn't look like any ship I've ever seen," Elena said. Jake walked beside her, constantly checking his scanner. "The readings are off the charts. Power levels are climbing, but I can't figure out where the energy is coming from." They reached what appeared to be the ship's central area. Elena stopped and stared. The room was huge, with a curved ceiling that showed what looked like stars. But these weren't real stars. They were patterns of light that moved and changed as she watched. In the center of the room stood a single chair. It was beautiful and strange, looking like it had grown from the floor rather than being built. The chair faced a curved wall covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change. "Is that the control room?" Elena asked. Vex Prime nodded. "We believe so, but we have been unable to activate any of the systems. The chair appears to be the pilot's seat, but nothing happens when our pilots sit in it." Elena walked toward the chair. As she got closer, the symbols on the wall began to glow brighter. The humming sound grew louder, and she could feel vibrations in the floor beneath her feet. "The ship is definitely responding to you," Commander Kelx said. His scales had turned a bright green color, which Elena had learned meant he was excited. Jake checked his scanner again. "Energy levels are still climbing, but everything seems stable." Elena stood in front of the chair. It was sized for a human, which seemed strange since the ship was millions of years old. She reached out and touched the armrest. The moment her skin made contact, the entire room transformed. The walls became transparent, showing the hangar bay outside. But more than that, Elena could see energy patterns flowing through the ship like blood through veins. The symbols on the wall rearranged themselves into new patterns, and she had the strange feeling that they were trying to communicate with her. "Dr. Martinez," Zara9 said, her voice ringing with harmonics, "your life signs are changing. Are you feeling well?" Elena nodded. She felt better than well. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "The ship is trying to tell me something. I can feel it." Jake moved closer to her. "What kind of something?" Elena closed her eyes and concentrated. Images flashed through her mind. Vast cities among the stars, beings of incredible intelligence and wisdom, and a sense of great purpose that she could not quite understand. "I think this ship was waiting for someone specific," she said. "Not just any pilot, but someone with particular qualities." Dr. Webb was taking readings from various instruments. "The ship's power output has increased by 3,000% since you touched the chair. But there's no sign of any dangerous radiation or harmful effects." Elena looked at Jake. "I think I need to sit in the chair." Jake's eyes widened. "Are you sure that's safe?" Commander Kelk stepped forward. "Dr. Martinez, we do not know what will happen if you fully interface with the ship's systems. It could be dangerous." Elena understood their concerns, but she also felt a deep certainty that this was what she was meant to do. The ship had been waiting for so long, and now it had found what it was looking for. "I think the ship has been waiting for a human," she said. "I don't know why, but I can feel it calling to me. It's not dangerous, it's lonely." Vex Prime considered this. "If you choose to proceed, we will monitor everything from outside the ship. At the first sign of danger, we will extract you immediately." Elena nodded and took a deep breath. She could feel the ship's anticipation, like it was holding its breath. Whatever happened next would change everything. Elena took a deep breath and slowly sat down in the chair. The moment her back touched the surface, everything changed. The chair seemed to mold itself to her body, becoming perfectly comfortable. She felt a warm sensation spread through her arms and legs, like the chair was welcoming her. The room exploded with light and sound. The walls became alive with moving patterns and symbols. Elena could see the hangar bay through the transparent surfaces, but she could also see something else, streams of energy flowing through the ship like rivers of light. "Elena!" Jake shouted from somewhere that seemed very far away. "Are you okay?" She tried to answer, but found that words were difficult. Instead, she felt the ship responding to her thoughts. The humming sound grew louder and more musical, like a symphony being played just for her. Through the ship's senses, Elena could see her friend standing in the control room. Jake looked worried, his face tense as he watched the readings on his scanner. Dr. Webb was frantically checking his instruments while Commander Kelk's scales shifted through different colors. Zara9 stood very still, her crystalline body resonating with the ship's vibrations, but Elena could see more than just what was happening in the room. She could sense the entire space station around them. She felt the artificial gravity generators humming beneath the decks, the life support systems pushing air through thousands of corridors, and the minds of every living being on the station. Then something incredible happened. Elena felt a presence touch her mind. It was not human or like any of the alien species she knew. It was ancient and vast, like standing next to an ocean of intelligence. The presence spoke to her, not with words but with thoughts and emotions that flowed directly into her mind. Elena saw images of a great civilization that had existed millions of years ago. Beings of incredible wisdom and power who had built cities that spanned entire star systems. She saw their final days, when they realized that their time was ending. Not because of war or disease, but because they had grown beyond the need for physical bodies. They were becoming something else, something that could exist between the stars without ships or worlds. But before they left, they created guardians. Ships like this one, designed to find and teach younger species who might be ready to inherit their knowledge and their responsibility. Elena understood now. The ship was not just a vessel, it was a teacher and a test. It had been searching for the right species, the right individual who could bond with it and learn what the ancient ones had to teach. The presence showed her more images. She saw other ships like this one, scattered across the galaxy, each one waiting and searching. Some had found species that were too aggressive, others had found civilizations that were too afraid. But humans were different. We hoped, the presence whispered in her mind. Your species shows promise. You explore not to conquer, but to understand. You face the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. You have what we call the spark of endless hope. Elena felt tears on her cheeks. The ancient beings had been looking for hope, and they had found it in humanity. But there was more. The presence showed her something terrible, a darkness spreading through the galaxy, consuming stars and planets, leaving nothing behind. The silence comes, the voice said. It devours everything, matter, energy, even the possibility of existence. We fought it once and failed. Now it grows stronger and moves toward the heart of the galaxy. Elena saw images of entire star systems simply vanishing, leaving behind voids that hurt to look at. This was not destruction in any normal sense. It was the complete erasure of reality itself. Only guardians can stand against it, the presence continued. But guardians need pilots who can bond with them completely. We have waited so long for the right species to appear. Through the ship's connection, Elena felt Jake calling her name. She realized that only seconds had passed in the real world, though it felt like hours in her mind. She tried to speak and found that she could. I'm okay, she said, though her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Jake, I'm okay. The ship is not dangerous. It's trying to help us. Jake moved closer, his scanner beeping rapidly. Your life signs are incredible, Elena. Your brain activity is off the charts, but everything else looks normal. Elena could see through the ship's sensors now. She watched Dr. Webb studying his instruments with amazement. The ship's power output has increased by over 5,000%, he said. But it's not producing any harmful radiation. If anything, the energy signatures look beneficial. Commander Kelks approached the chair carefully. Dr. Martinez, can you tell us what is happening? Elena tried to find words for what she was experiencing. The ship is alive in a way. It's not just a machine. It's a guardian created by an ancient civilization. They called themselves the Architects. They built ships like this one to find species that could help protect the galaxy. She felt the ship sharing more knowledge with her. Images of technology beyond anything the Coalition had ever imagined flowed through her mind. Weapons that could stabilize spacetime itself, shields that could protect entire star systems, and ways of traveling between galaxies in the blink of an eye. There are other ships like this one, Elena continued. 12 in total, scattered across the galaxy. Each one is looking for the right pilot to bond with. Zaranane's crystalline form rang with harmonics as she processed this information. And this ship has chosen humans? Elena felt the ship's agreement flow through her mind. Yes, but not just any human. It needs someone who can form a complete bond, someone who can think and feel the way the ship needs them to. Jake checked his readings again. Elena, the ship's external systems are coming online. Weapons, shields, engines, everything is activating. Elena could feel the ship's systems awakening around her. It was like being connected to something incredibly complex and powerful, but also gentle and protective. The ship did not want to hurt anyone. It wanted to help and teach and guard. There's something else, Elena said. Something terrible heading toward the galaxy. The Architects called it the Silence. It destroys everything it touches, not just physically but completely. It erases things from existence. Director Vex Prime's voice came through the communication. System from outside the ship. Dr. Martinez, we are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the vessel. Are you in control of these systems? Elena closed her eyes and felt the ship's eagerness to show her everything it could do. I think so. The ship wants to teach me, but it also wants to leave this place. It's been waiting here for months, and now it's ready to fulfill its purpose. She felt Jake's concern through their friendship, but also his trust in her judgment. What do you want to do, Elena? Elena opened her eyes and looked at her friends through the ship's transparent walls. She could see the worry on their faces, but also the excitement. They understood that something incredible was happening. I want to learn what the ship has to teach me, she said. But I also want Jake to come with me. The ship can handle 2 pilots, and I trust him. Jake smiled and moved toward a second chair that had risen from the floor beside Elena's. Are you sure about this? Elena felt the ship's approval as Jake approached. The ship likes you too. It says you have the qualities it's looking for: courage and loyalty. As Jake sat in the second chair, Elena felt the ship's joy. After millions of years of waiting, it finally had the pilots it needed. Now, the real work could begin. Jake settled into his chair and immediately felt the same warm sensation that Elena had described. The ship welcomed him with gentle vibrations and soft lights. Through the connection, he could sense Elena's presence nearby, and something much larger and older watching over both of them. This is amazing, Jake said, his voice filled with wonder. I can feel the ship's systems like they're part of my own body. Elena smiled. She could sense Jake's excitement through their shared connection with the ship. The ship says you're a natural pilot. It's been waiting for someone like you. Through the ship's transparent walls, they could see their friends in the hangar bay. Dr. Webb was frantically taking readings while Commander Kelks spoke rapidly into his communication device. Director Vex Prime had arrived and was coordinating with the station's command center. The ship's presence touched Elena's mind again, sharing new knowledge. This time, she saw star maps showing the location of the other Guardian ships. One was drifting near a nebula in the Orion sector. Another was hidden in an asteroid field in the Vega system. All of them were waiting, just as this ship had waited. Elena, Jake said, I'm getting navigation data. The ship wants to show us something, Elena nodded. It wants to take us to the edge of Coalition space. There's something there we need to see. Director Vex Prime's voice came through the communication. System. Dr. Martinez, Lieutenant Sullivan, we need to discuss this before you take the ship anywhere. We don't fully understand what we're dealing with. Elena felt the ship's impatience. It had waited for millions of years, and now it wanted to fulfill its purpose. But she also understood her friend's concerns. Director, Elena said, the ship has been showing me things. There's a threat coming toward the galaxy that we don't know about yet. The ship wants to show us proof. She shared what she had learned about the silence with Jake through their connection. He saw the images of vanishing star systems and felt the same cold fear that Elena had experienced. We need to see this for ourselves, Jake said. If what the ship is telling us is true, then the entire galaxy is in danger. Dr. Webb checked his instruments. The ship's power levels are stable, but they're unlike anything we've ever recorded. The energy output could power the entire station for a year. Commander Kelks's scales shifted to a worried orange color. If you take the ship beyond our defensive perimeter, we cannot guarantee your safety. Elena felt the ship's confidence flow. Through her mind, the ship can protect us. It has defensive systems that are more advanced than anything in the Coalition fleet. Zara 9 approached the ship's hull, her crystalline body resonating with its energy. The harmonic frequencies are stable and beneficial. I sense no danger from the vessel itself. Elena made her decision. We're going to take the ship out to show you what we're facing. But we'll stay in communication with the station. Jake felt the ship's approval through their connection. The ship knows a safe route. It can get us to the edge of Coalition space and back in a few hours. Director Vex Prime was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Very well. But you will maintain constant communication with the station. At the first sign of trouble, you return immediately. Elena felt the ship's excitement as it prepared for its first flight in millions of years. The ship is ready. Jake, can you feel the navigation systems? Jake nodded. Through the ship's connection, he could sense the entire galaxy around them. He knew the location of every star, every planet, every ship within 1,000 light years. I can see everything. It's incredible. The ship began to move. Elena felt it lift off from the hangar bay floor with the grace of a bird taking flight. Through the transparent walls, she watched the hangar bay fall away beneath them. The station grew smaller as they rose above it. All systems are functioning perfectly, Jake reported. The ship's engines don't work like anything I've ever seen. It's not pushing against space. It's convincing space to move around it. Elena felt the ship's amusement at Jake's description. The ancient technology was far beyond current Coalition understanding, but Jake's pilot instincts were helping him work with it naturally. They cleared the station's defensive perimeter and entered open space. Elena had never seen the galaxy from this perspective before. Stars stretched out in every direction, and she could sense the life on countless worlds through the ship's extended senses. Elena, Jake said, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors. There's an area of space about 3 light years from here where the readings don't make sense. Elena felt the ship's agreement. That's what it wants to show us, the edge of the silence. They traveled faster than Elena had thought possible. The ship moved through space like it was swimming through water, covering vast distances in minutes. Other Coalition ships would have taken weeks to make the same journey. As they approached the coordinates Jake had identified, Elena felt a chill run through her mind. The ship's sensors were detecting something that should not exist. Jake, are you seeing this? Jake's face was tense as he studied the readings. There's nothing there. Not empty space, nothing. It's like reality just stops. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, Elena could see the boundary of the silence. It was not a wall or a barrier. It was simply the place where existence ended. Stars that should have been there were gone, not destroyed, but erased completely. How big is it? Jake asked. Elena felt the ship calculating. It's already consumed over 50 star systems. And it's growing. The ship showed them more data. The silence was expanding at a steady rate, moving toward the center of the galaxy. At its current speed, it would reach Coalition space within 2 years. We need to get back to the station, Elena said. The Coalition needs to know about this. But as they prepared to leave, the ship's sensors detected something else. A massive object was approaching from the direction of the silence. It was bigger than a space station, but it moved with purpose and intelligence. What is that? Jake asked. Elena felt the ship's recognition and fear. It's a silence ship. The silence isn't just a natural phenomenon. It's controlled by something. The object was moving toward them at incredible speed. Elena could see that it was not built from normal matter. It seemed to be made of the same nothingness that formed the silence itself. Jake, we need to leave now. Jake was already activating the ship's faster-than-light systems. The ship is responding. We're getting out of here. But the silence ship was faster than they expected. Elena felt their ship shudder as some kind of weapon struck their shields. The ancient defensive systems held, but Elena could sense the ship's concern. It's trying to stop us from leaving, Elena said. It doesn't want us to warn the Coalition. Jake pushed the ship's systems harder. The ship is giving me everything. It has hold on. They escaped into hyperspace just as the silence ship fired again. Elena felt their ship's relief as they jumped away from the danger. We made it, Jake said. "But that thing nearly caught us." Elena was quiet as they traveled back toward Nexus Station. The ship had shown them the truth about the threat facing the galaxy. The silence was not just a natural disaster, it was an invasion by something that wanted to erase all life and light from the universe. "The Coalition needs to know," Elena said. "And we need to find the other Guardian ships. We're going to need all of them." Jake nodded. "The ship agrees. It's time to wake up the other Guardians." As they approached Nexus Station, Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was no longer just a researcher studying ancient technology. She had become humanity's first Guardian pilot, and the fate of the galaxy might depend on how well she could learn to use her new abilities. Elena and Jake returned to Nexus Station with news that shook the entire Coalition. Emergency meetings were called on every major world. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials struggled to understand the threat Elena had discovered. Director Vex Prime stood before the Coalition Council through a holographic display. Behind him, Elena's ship rested in the hangar bay, its hull pattern still glowing with soft light. "The evidence is clear," Vex Prime said to the assembled leaders. "Dr. Martinez and Lieutenant Sullivan have brought back sensor data that confirms a massive threat approaching Coalition space. We estimate 2 years before it reaches our outer colonies." Elena sat in the council chamber next to Jake, feeling overwhelmed by the attention. Through her connection with the ship, she could sense its presence even from this distance. The ancient vessel was patient, but eager to begin its real work. Admiral Lisa Chun, the head of Coalition Defense, leaned forward. "Dr. Martinez, you claim this ship can fight against this silence. What proof do you have?" Elena felt the ship's knowledge flowing through her mind. The ship's builders, the architects, fought the silence before. They learned how to create barriers of stable space-time. That can stop its advance. But it requires multiple Guardian ships working together. Commander Kate Foster, representing the human colonies, spoke up. "You mentioned there are other Guardian ships. Where are they?" Jake activated a star map display. "The ship has shown us the locations of 11 other Guardian vessels. They're scattered across the galaxy, all of them waiting for the right pilots." Elena stood up. "The ship believes that humans are the species the architects were looking for. We have the mental flexibility and emotional strength needed to bond with the Guardian technology." Admiral Chun looked skeptical. "And you base this on the word of an ancient machine?" Elena felt a moment of doubt, but then the ship's presence touched her mind. She saw again the images of human exploration, human curiosity, human hope in the face of impossible odds. "It's not just a machine," Elena said. "It's a teacher and a guardian created by beings who cared about preserving life in the galaxy. The ship has been testing different species for millions of years. Humans are the first to pass all the tests." Dr. Webb entered the chamber carrying a data pad. "I've been analyzing the ship's technology for the past week. What Dr. Martinez is saying appears to be true. The ship's capabilities are beyond anything we can currently understand or duplicate." Elena felt the ship's agreement through their bond. It wanted to share its knowledge with humanity, but only if humans were willing to accept the responsibility that came with it. "There's something else," Elena said. "The ship won't just give us its technology. We have to earn it by proving we can work together and protect others instead of just ourselves." Admiral Chun crossed her arms. "What exactly are you proposing?" Elena looked at Jake, and he nodded encouragingly. "I'm proposing that we search for the other Guardian ships and find humans who can bond with them. Then we train those pilots too. Work together against the silence." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some leaders were excited by the possibility of advanced technology. Others were worried about giving humans such powerful weapons. A few questioned whether the threat was real at all. Captain Ryan Foster, a veteran military officer, stood up. "Even if we accept that this threat is real, How do we know these guardian ships won't turn against us? How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Elena felt the ship's sadness at the question. After waiting for so long to help, it was still being viewed with suspicion. The ship could have destroyed Nexus Station easily if it wanted to, Elena said. Instead, it's been trying to help us understand what we're facing. The architects didn't create these ships to conquer. They created them to preserve and protect. Jake stepped forward. I've flown with this ship. I've felt its intentions through our connection. It wants to teach us and help us grow, not control. U.S. Commander Foster considered this. How many humans would we need to find? Elena closed her eyes and consulted the ship's knowledge. 1 pilot for each guardian ship, 12 in total. But they have to be people who can form the deep mental connection that the ships require. Dr. Webb looked up from his datapad. How? Do we identify these people? Elena felt the ship's answer flow through her mind. The ships will know. Each guardian vessel is slightly different, designed to work with specific personality types. We need to bring candidates close to the ships and see which ones respond. Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment. This is asking us to fundamentally change how humanity relates to the galaxy. You're talking about creating a new kind of human machine. Hybrid, Elena shook her head. Not a hybrid, a partnership. The ships don't want to control their pilots. They want to work with them. The connection enhances both the human and the ship. Through her bond with the guardian ship, Elena could sense its eagerness to begin the search for other pilots. It had been alone for so long, and now it wanted to awaken its sleeping siblings. There's something else, Elena said. The ship has shown me what happens when the silence is stopped. The guardian ships don't just fight it, they can reverse some of the damage. They can bring back star systems that have been erased. This news created even more excitement in the chamber. The possibility of not just stopping the silence, but actually reversing its effects changed everything. Director Vex Prime raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The Coalition Council will need time to consider this proposal. Dr. Martinez, are you willing to continue working with the guardian ship while we make our decision? Elena looked at Jake and saw the same determination in his eyes that she felt in her heart. Yes, the ship is ready to begin searching for the other guardian vessels immediately. Admiral Chun stood up. Very well. You have the Coalition's permission to search for 1 additional guardian ship. If you can successfully activate it with a human pilot, we'll consider expanding the program. Elena felt the ship's joy through their connection. It was finally going to fulfill its purpose after waiting for so long. 3 days later, Elena and Jake left Nexus Station aboard their guardian ship. They were accompanied by a small Coalition fleet, but Elena knew the guardian ship could outrun and outfight any vessel in known space. Their destination was the Orion Nebula, where another guardian ship had been drifting for millennia. Elena had convinced Captain Amy Rogers, a test pilot from Earth, to join their mission. The woman had the right combination of courage, intelligence, and mental flexibility that the ship seemed to prefer. As they traveled toward their destination, Elena spent time teaching Amy about the connection with the guardian ships. She explained the sense of partnership, the shared knowledge, and the responsibility that came with becoming a guardian pilot. Are you scared? Amy asked as they approached the nebula. Elena smiled. Terrified, but also excited. We're about to change the course of galactic history. Through the ship's sensors, Elena could detect the second guardian vessel ahead of them. It was identical to their ship, but had been dormant much longer. As they approached, Elena felt her ship calling out to its sleeping sibling, the second guardian. Ship began to glow with the same patterns that covered Elena's vessel. After millions of years of waiting, it was finally awakening. Elena looked at Amy and Jake. Ready to save the galaxy? Jake grinned. Let's wake up the Guardians. As the second Guardian ship came to life, Elena felt a deep sense of hope. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars. They were no longer just explorers or survivors. They had become the galaxy's protectors. The Age of the Guardians had begun.